We're the People's Zoom Readers Theater, a very diverse group that comes together to focus on issues that affect our society, our humanity, and our democracy. We use drama as our vehicle to bring us together in a productive and creative way. And we like to share our performances with our audience with the hope that we're calling attention to something worth discussing, and the hope that maybe somebody can benefit from hearing it, maybe change an action, perhaps change a way of thinking, maybe a change in behavior. And if nothing else, we hope that we're providing a kind of a venue or kind of a support group for people who want to share their thoughts on critical topics.
Under normal circumstances, the People's Zoom Readers Theater tries to be as bipartisan as possible, but we believe these are not normal circumstances. Upon receiving the Edward R. Murrow Lifetime Achievement Award, NBC News anchor Lester Holt said when he received the Edward R. Murrow Lifetime Achievement Award that the idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in. That the sun sets in the west is a fact. Any contrary view does not deserve our time or attention. He added, regard for truth must remain a foothold in our society so that we can weather the storms of tomorrow's calamities, tomorrow's pandemics. With this in mind, we, the People's Zoom Readers Theater, are providing two performance events that pertain to the election. We welcome your thoughts during our follow-up discussions. Performance Event 1, Country Over Party.
Great celebration. I hope when I graduate, I have graduation celebration like this.
It really was lovely. I especially like the cake. Jane, if you do as well as your cousin, you can bet on it.
Thanks, Mom. Chris is a tough act to follow.
I'm sure your mother is only joking. We're very proud of you and all that you do.
I know.
I have no doubt that Jane will do very well. I'm a very lucky woman to have such smart children and grandchildren. Each of you is truly impressive.
Mom, I'm sure there are times when it's not much fun having a daughter and son-in-law in Congress. Not these days. Chris, are you thinking of following your mother to Capitol Hill or making your mark in the courtroom as your father did?
Great question, Aunt Celeste. I think I'll make that decision after law school.
Wise decision. Right now, you should take a break and enjoy your summer. You've earned a vacation.
Thanks, Dad. I just want to say with all the people who count in one place. I know I'm incredibly lucky to have all of you setting great examples. You always listened to me when I needed to run and encouraged me when the hill seemed a little too steep to climb.
Chris, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. We all knew you would make it. We've all had our moments of self-doubt, wondering if we could make it, but Ava, you seem a bit distracted. What's up? Where's your big smile? This is a day to celebrate.
I'm sorry. Of course, I'm over the moon about Chris. As his mother, I couldn't be prouder. You know that, Chris. But if I can be honest, I'm not so proud of myself.
What? What's wrong?
I hope you won't think it's wrong, Tony. Actually, I want to share something I think is important, but I'd like to wait until Maya and Akira join us. They are upstairs putting Kai to sleep. They are staying over since it's such a long drive at this time of night, and I asked Rob to stay as well.
I hope I'm not crashing a family hour.
You are family. Second cousin stands for something.
Ava, You certainly sparked our curiosity. This must be important.
Finally, sorry to keep you waiting. I know, Sister dear, you have something to say. Unfortunately, it wasn't so easy putting Kai down. It took the two of us.
It's not usually this bad. I guess it's the late hour and a strange bed. Anyway, enough about us. We are grateful we don't have to drive home now. I'm looking at your faces and I'm getting the feeling there's going to be some kind of announcement. Am I right? Anybody getting married? Having a baby?
Oh, nothing as pleasant as that.
The floor is yours, Ava.
Go ahead, Mom. What do you want to tell us?
I'm not sure everybody here will like what I have to say, but I feel as though I've just awakened from a kind of a nightmare.
Nightmare?
Maybe it's a coma. Yes, that's it. I think I'm coming out of a coma.
What are you talking about?
You're scaring us.
I scare myself sometimes.
Tell us, what's going on? Are you sick? Is it something like that?
Oh no. Actually, I think I'm on the road to a recovery of my senses.
Please, okay, please, no more beating around the bush. What's going on?
I'm leaving the party.
Leaving the party?
Yes, I'm leaving the party, the political party that Dad joined many years ago and I followed. I hope you will all understand. Mom, Tony?
Of course, Ava. I trust you. You must have a good reason.
Honey, you sure want to talk about this now?
Dad, it's okay. I just want to hear what Mom has to say. I think we all do.
Thank you, Chris. I know it's not an ideal time, but I think you will like what I'm doing. In a sense, it's like another graduation present. Chris, I believe this is something you've been wanting me to do for a long time.
Why? Why are you doing this? I always suspected you weren't happy, but why now?
I know this may not be the right decision for you, Tony, but, well, let me explain. First, I would like to suggest that if my dad were still alive, he would be mortified by what's become of our party. When he joined the party many years ago, it was a natural. Dad being a businessman, this party was a good fit for him. Over time, I came to realize it wasn't a good fit for me. Too often, over the last 8 years, I have disagreed with many of our policies, but I felt it was smart to stay and try to inject a more moderate point of view that would help us work across the aisle.
And you've done a really good job of that, Ava. I've always admired your perseverance.
Unfortunately, there haven't been many opportunities for that, especially after you know who got elected.
Ava, we still need you to help moderate.
It doesn't seem to work anymore. And you know why? No, I just can't support the former president and the party he's created. I've had it. The things he's been saying are getting more and more bizarre, alarming. And the people who support him, who are afraid to stand up to him, well, many are extremely dangerous.
Ava, you must know how happy I am about this decision. I know you've been struggling with this for a long time.
I'm very glad you made this decision.
Frankly, I was wondering how long it would take for you to get fed up and leave.
Is this your idea, Ethan?
No. Tony, you know I have a mind of my own. In fact, I haven't been happy with our party for a while. I just didn't want to make waves. When we're surrounded by people who think a certain way, it's so easy to get caught up in it, especially since they were people I used to respect. I just didn't want to deal with the pushback. And let's be honest, Tony, it's a painful journey for those in our party who criticized or questioned the former president.
That's the truth. Look what happened to Liz Cheney.
I know, Chris, you've pointed that out several times, and it's ridiculous. There should be room for different opinions within the party. But now there isn't, and I realize that for my own self-respect, I can't be a part of this.
I think you're making a mistake.
Tony, I'm really sorry you feel this way, but I was making a mistake by waiting so long. I see quite clearly now that by not speaking up, I've been an enabler of bad behavior. During the commencement speech at Chris's graduation, Ken Burns' words spoke directly to me. I wasn't a graduate, but I felt that I finally came of age and realized what I needed to do as an elected representative of the people in our community.
What did he say? I wish we could have been there.
I have a copy of what Ken Burns said, and it truly resonated with me. He said, choose honor over hypocrisy, virtue over vulgarity, discipline over aspiration, character over cleverness, and sacrifice over self-indulgence. Serve your country, insist that we fight the right wars, denounce oppression everywhere.
Very powerful words. But in the real world,
yes, they are powerful.
And he continued with, convince your government, as Lincoln understood, that the real threat always and still comes from within this favored land. Insist we support science and the arts, especially the arts. They make our country worth defending.
I certainly agree with that. That's why I'm majoring in the arts. I may not make a fortune, but I will try to make a difference.
That's what counts, Jane.
What else did Ken Burns say?
I have a copy of the speech. I really liked when he quoted the Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Louis Brandeis, who said, the most important political office is that of the private citizen. Vote, please vote. You indelibly underscore your citizenship, and most important, our kinship with each other when you do.
I was also touched by those words. I'm very glad I was there to hear him. It's such an important message, especially today.
And yet, my party, Dad's and Tony's party, is trying to stop the vote, reduce the number of people who can vote. If we are honest, we will acknowledge that. Our party wants to ensure only certain people can vote. That's not right. Our country is in trouble. The threat is definitely coming from within, and we all know who is fanning the flames daily. When I think of all the effort to take the vote away from a lot of decent people, I feel ill.
I've been saying for a while that a lot of the behavior, I should say misbehavior in Congress, has been coming from your party.
I know this may sound dramatic, but during his speech, I couldn't stop thinking about the responsibility we have to the people who created our country and those who saved our country, and in fact, saved our democracy in the last 2 world wars.
listen, I appreciate all this patriotism, but come on. You are exaggerating about our party. There are lots of good people in our party.
Who are you thinking of, Tony, aside from you?
If there are, why aren't they speaking up?
I think we all know the reason. They are afraid.
It's more than that. There are members of our party who legitimately feel that things are changing too quickly in America, and the progressives are causing a lot of the problems.
What progressive ideas do you think are bad for our country?
Well, there are a number of things that concern decent people.
Like what?
I certainly don't support everything young people are saying, but we must leave our country, our planet, in good shape for future generations. And I don't think our country is exemplary, heading in the right direction in any way.
That's the truth. It's so divided that families like ours can't even have a holiday together without serious confrontations. I think I know why Cousin Jason isn't here tonight. It hasn't always been this contentious, this divided.
Oh, okay. Okay, I will agree with you about that. But I still believe in our goals.
Goals? What are they today?
Oh, you know. We must protect our children from some of the extreme things they're learning about things they probably can't understand. They are being indoctrinated with a very liberal education. And don't forget all that crime. Okay. We need somebody who will make it stop.
What kind of liberal education are you talking about?
Oh, come on, Rob. You know what I'm talking about. The woke stuff. Don't play dumb.
I think we know what Tony is referring to.
Akira, I believe you're wrong. Tony has been very accepting of us and our relationship and our family.
Yes. Yes, I am. Very.
Okay, then, what's the problem? Nobody is trying to corrupt our children.
Look, now, I never said that. But you know.
Okay. I think there are people who aren't as liberal as we are and comfortable with change. But we can't let these people make laws that represent their fears, their prejudices. And I refuse to be a member of a party that might think they should.
I couldn't agree with you more, Ava. We certainly don't want our children and grandchildren growing up ignorant about what's going on in the world. They also need to know the real history of our country, as ugly as some parts of it are. And as scary as it may be for some people, our children need to learn about people with different backgrounds and different identities. Since we are lucky enough to have members of our family who are part of the LGBTQ community, it's incumbent on all of us to reject antiquated attitudes. Ava, I'm proud of you. And I think if your dad were alive today, he would be proud of you too and approve of what you're doing.
Hey, I'm not the enemy here. I'm happy about our family, proud of our family. I just think that sometimes there is too much talk and perhaps it could confuse our children.
Dad, I'm not confused. I really don't understand what the problem is in accepting everybody.
And if we are confused, especially children much younger than we are, well, they need to be able to ask questions. Censoring this topic or any other topics only creates anxiety and worse, despair, even desperation.
That's true, Chris. I told you that I have classmates who are going through a terrible time because they still don't feel fully accepted. It's wrong.
Look, you have to admit that so much talk about gender identity, transitions, pronouns, it's a very complicated subject. But there is one topic, and it isn't so complicated. Crime, especially in the cities. It's a huge problem that isn't being properly addressed.
I agree, it's a huge problem. But don't you think that your party is contributing to the problem?
What? Can you say that?
What do you think happens when there is constant polarizing? In many cases, demonizing people you disagree with. The anger that the leader in your party displays and encourages others to feel can often lead to violence. And then what does your party do to alleviate the problem? Hands out guns to just about anybody.
That's ridiculous. Nobody's giving them guns.
Come on, Tony. What the gun lobby has done and our party has supported is just about as lethal as handing them guns. It's too damn easy to get a gun, carry a gun, and
not just a simple gun, an assault weapon that can kill multiple people at one time. Let's be honest. Your party has gone out of its way to dismiss any new gun laws that have been suggested, even laws that have been in existence, and they've used the Supreme Court to support this dangerous situation.
I thought after the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting that killed 26 children and 6 educators in December 2012, everybody would unite and pass strong gun control laws. But no,
What happened since then? There have been over 54 school shootings, killing over 101 and injuring 156 people, mostly children.
That's awful. I will agree. That is awful. No question about it. But, well, okay. What about the mental health issue that needs to be addressed?
Tony, please don't go down that path. Of course, people who kill have mental problems. There are a lot of people with mental problems throughout the world. The United States has the 28th highest rate of deaths from gun violence in the world, 7 times as high as in Canada, 340 times higher than in the UK. Surely these countries have just as many people with mental issues. Why then so many gun deaths in the United States?
Look, I can't answer that. I'm just telling you the truth. And that is, the party fears that the opposition wants to take away all their guns. And we all know what happens when you give people a finger. They want your hand, and then what's next?
I can't believe you are saying that. Surely you aren't suggesting that if we have reasonable gun laws, eventually nobody will be able to purchase a gun?
You must know that would never happen, but the NRA and the gun shop owners use this as an excuse to prevent smart gun laws, even though most of our fellow citizens want to get rid of the guns that kill multiple people at one time.
for heaven's sake, we all know that assault weapons are meant for the military and should only be used by the military.
And background checks. What's wrong with that? Why should any of us want a person who is mentally unstable to have a gun?
Chris, you sound like a lawyer already.
If we're serious, we need to acknowledge the fact that there are other causes of crime, and one that comes to my mind every time I hear about another senseless death is hopelessness.
It should be obvious. I see this in my work every day. We have young people in cities and rural areas who feel there's no way to change the trajectory of their lives. When people feel they can't get out of the hole they're in, frustration and anger can eat at their character. Let's be honest, take away a person's hope for a better future, take away a person's pride and self-worth. What do you expect?
You are right, Maya. Young people in the inner cities don't have access to the kind of education that will provide a way out. Much needs to be done to improve the education for all Americans, regardless of their zip code. This takes money that our party hasn't been generous to allocate, and money for childcare would make a huge difference.
It's also the unemployed. It shouldn't surprise anybody that young men who are out of work, who are struggling to earn money and have too much time on their hands are very vulnerable. And when guns and drugs are ridiculously accessible, what do you expect? Who is promising these young people a better future if they put their guns away and throw out their drugs?
Look, you are all making good points, but I'm still a believer in personal responsibility. We all make decisions that affect our lives, and we are responsible for the consequences.
Tony, you know I love you, so I hate to be the one to point this out, but how does the party's position on personal responsibility reckon with their position on abortion?
Look, that's another topic.
Not really. Let's talk about abortion and how it relates to personal responsibility. We are supposed to be the party that advocates limited government. You know, we hear it all the time from some older people in the party. People need to take care of themselves. Don't depend on the government to help you out. Isn't that our party's thinking? Well, if it is, what is our party doing in the abortion business?
Exactly. Where does your party come off interfering with a woman's right to choose about having a baby? And then to punish women and doctors if a woman decides she can't afford to have a baby for whatever reason? It is so hypocritical.
That's the truth. And the reason shouldn't matter. It's nobody's business except the person making the decision. It could be physical, financial, emotional. It shouldn't matter. It's not our business. Yet many members of your party are advocating the most invasive government policies.
Incredibly hypocritical. People in a democracy should have the right to make these critical decisions, not the government. The values that you or I may have should not be legalized.
I have a question. It's a different topic, but I hear that in Louisiana schools will be required to display the Ten Commandments. Is it legal?
Actually, since 1980, this has been considered unconstitutional.
What about prayer in school?
I know this one. In 1962, the Supreme Court prohibited the recitation of school-sponsored prayer in public schools. Students and teachers can pray on their own, but the Constitution forbids public school officials acting in their official capacities from directing or favoring prayer. And that's a quote. It all has to do with the wall that separates church and state.
The wall that separates church and state? There's a wall?
It's an expression that Thomas Jefferson talked about. It's the Establishment Clause found in the First Amendment to the Constitution, which allows for separation of church and state. In simple English, it means the government should have nothing to do with the religions and religious practices of the people.
And this wall should clearly limit the involvement of religious practices in public schools and elsewhere. It should also prevent the government from getting involved in women's reproductive rights, including abortion, which some religions actually approve of.
This makes sense to me.
It does. It actually does. But don't you all think that children and teenagers need some kind of guidance, need to be taught values? Don't children need to be taught about appropriate behavior, the kind that enables all of us in our society to coexist?
Tony, be careful. I think you are diving into shark-infested waters with this topic.
Yes, our children should definitely be taught values. And one way to do that is with elevating people to leadership positions who model good behavior, right?
Well, you can't honestly think the head of a party is a sterling example of admirable personal behavior. Which of the 10 Commandments has he not violated? You certainly can't call him honest, trustworthy, responsible, or empathetic. If you have any examples, I would be happy to hear them.
And let's not forget his shameful, if not criminal, practice of not paying people who work for him. I know of people in New York who are still waiting to get paid.
What about when he mocked a reporter with a disability? I will never forget that ugly impression. Seriously, who does that?
What about the former president's disparaging comments about Gold Star families, calling U.S. servicemen losers, suckers? Here's a person who never served, who never risked his life for anybody.
And remember when he was angry at Senator John McCain, who refused to replace the Affordable Care Act, known as Obamacare, Remember what he said? He's not a war hero. He's not a war hero because he was captured. I like people who weren't captured, jackass.
How about exaggerating his wealth and paying off people to prevent the truth from coming out about his affair with a woman while his wife and new son were at home? In my book, and I believe yours, these are all unethical behaviors.
He is certainly not somebody we should want to hold up to our children as an example of a decent person, let alone a president.
I find it almost laughable that he and his party are telling people in different states what children should be learning, what history they should know, and what they should be able to read.
Okay, enough. I feel like the family punching bag. Gee, look, I'm not stupid and I'm not blind. We all know who he is.
Then why should the members of your party support him?
Honestly, many are afraid to cross him. You know that. He's a million influences with the public and a lot of very wealthy supporters.
That is true, but surely there must be a way for decent members of your party to unite and assert themselves in a way that won't alienate supporters.
There have to be really decent people in your party, and Eva. And I don't mean just you and my dad.
I would like to think they exist, but there really seems to be a free-for-all. It's troubled me greatly that members of our party have been behaving as though anything goes. Anything is acceptable. Jane, did you see what happened in Congress a few months ago when members of our party were disrespecting Dr. Fauci?
I remember hearing that Dr. Fauci wasn't treated right.
Well, that's for sure. Dr. Fauci, a doctor who has spent 43 years of his life working to eradicate diseases like HIV, AIDS, respiratory infections, tuberculosis, malaria, Ebola, Zika, and COVID-19. The man who has literally saved millions of lives over the years was literally treated like a criminal.
It was shameful. I thought nothing could shock me anymore. Nothing can excuse such behavior. The people who verbally attack Dr. Fauci should be censored.
I heard that Dr. Fauci and his wife and daughters have been threatened. Their lives have been threatened. This is not right.
I know. It's crazy, but rumors have spread that he could have created the problem, COVID. So he could make money from the vaccines that were created.
Dad, how could you say that?
I'm just repeating what I heard. You know I don't believe that.
We know, but even hearing you say this is troubling. People say these things to confuse the public, to create trouble. But why? Why are the people in your party behaving this way?
All I can say is, I wish it didn't take me so long to recognize what was happening and that it wasn't going to change.
Well, I must admit, I was also shocked when Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke to Dr. Fauci that way. I don't know why our party has applauded or tolerated her for the last few years.
Uncle Tony, it's not just her. I was really upset with the way the members of your party have been talking about the hush money trial in New York that ended in 34 felony convictions for the former president. We all know it was conducted in a very fair way. It played out in the news for weeks.
Every detail was reported. Quite honestly, more than I needed to hear. It's too bad the former president and his people don't like the outcome.
Excuse me? Just to be sure I understand the importance of this trial, what exactly is a felony?
All right. A felony is typically defined as a crime punishable by a term of imprisonment for 1 year or more. Unlike misdemeanors, which are offenses punishable only by fines or short terms of imprisonment. So, what he is convicted of is very serious.
What exactly did the former president do in this case?
Well, among other things, he falsified business records, which is considered a felony in New York.
He covered up information that the public was entitled to know before his election.
It's very possible that had more people known about his cheating on his wife, cheating the government, and then covering things up, he might have lost the election. We'll never know.
Yes, had this information been known, he might not have become president. Well, you can be sure he was not happy with 34 convictions. I get that, but it was dangerous when he and his followers took out their anger on the witnesses and the jurors who are completely innocent people.
Their only crime was being responsible citizens who gave up weeks of their personal lives to perform their civic duty.
I couldn't believe it when I heard that their lives had been threatened. Hearing the members of your party, your dad's party, calling the trial a sham, well, that is a low your dad wouldn't accept either. Many of these people are lawyers. They should know better.
Well, some of our colleagues think the jurors were brainwashed a bit, just a little bit.
Brainwashed by whom?
They think the judge did a fairly good job.
Nonsense. The only people who have been brainwashed are those who are calling for the deaths of decent citizens.
All right, I hope we can all agree that nobody is above the law. No man or woman, and certainly not a twice impeached convicted felon.
Right on, Chris. Well, January the 6th, that did it for me. Tony, you know I've never been a Pence supporter by any measure, but the idea of even hinting to hurt the vice president because he wouldn't give the former president what he wanted, well, it made me sick to my stomach.
Okay. I'll admit that was crazy. I can't defend that one.
No surprise that the former vice president doesn't support the former president in his candidacy. In fact, most of the people who worked for him in important cabinet positions no longer support him.
That's all good, but the members of the party haven't distanced themselves, and most are refusing to work with people on the other side. You know, I've always believed that what makes a democracy work is when people with different points of view come together and find compromise.
We all know that has been your approach. Nobody gets everything they want. But when we try to work together, we give our country something beneficial for the majority. This was a job I know you were proud of. But people like the former president have been making it almost impossible for you or anybody in his party to be a team player.
Chris, did you know how this business that you can't have friends on the other side started? With Newt Gingrich. Did you learn about this?
Actually, I did. He was in Congress, I think, in 1978-ish
Until 1991. So what did you learn?
He started this very bad trend that we are still experiencing now. He argued people in his party to use inflammatory words such as traitors to describe political opponents. He persuaded other people in the party to be more oppositional.
That's right. And many people in our party adopted his tactic, effective polarization. Gingrich preferred obstruction to bipartisan cooperation. And that is exactly how our party has been operating.
And now we are all feeling the effects of social media, which is dominated by hateful rhetoric. Unfortunately, politicians are using it to their advantage. Regardless of the harm it's doing to our children, to our society.
You must admit, Tony, if you really think about it, that the current head of our party has taken Gingrich's tactic to even greater heights.
That is for sure. The former president engages in lying, distorting, and constantly repeating lies, which are often about his political opponents. In fact, anybody who isn't loyal to him.
Sounds like something other tyrants have done in the past that have led to horrific results.
Okay. Okay. All right. You've made some very good points. But you must agree that our party would have done a much better job about the immigration problem. The situation is totally, I mean, totally out of hand now.
It is out of hand, but when the current president proposed ways to reduce the problem, our party refused to work with the new administration.
I definitely remember when the current president was first elected and sent Congress a plan to provide a pathway to citizenship for immigrants who have been living in the United States for many years. We were very excited about that.
I remember it too. It was a plan that would expand lawful pathways for migrants. It also included more border resources for more effective border security. Yeah, whatever happened to this plan?
Good question, Chris. So, Tony, can you tell us why it was rejected? Never mind, it's a rhetorical question. The answer is obvious.
Even if we all forgot what was attempted more than 3 years ago, look at what happened a few months ago. Our party got what we wanted. Finally, a tough bipartisan agreement to secure the border, a proposal that would have made our country safer. And to make it palatable to the other party, this plan would have treated the immigrants much more fairly and humanely. But I can barely say it. Without tears, so much time went into crafting this plan. And many of us really believed, finally, we were going to reduce this problem significantly.
And when the former president directed your party to kill the deal because it would hurt his campaign, your party did just that. What an embarrassment. Gingrich must have been cheering.
It's hard to explain a lot of behavior that I'm ashamed of. Another leader of the party that has disappointed me is Mitch McConnell. For some reason, I used to think Mitch McConnell had some moral fiber.
Mitch McConnell? That's a man who has changed his position on issues so many times, his head must be spinning. His examples of hypocrisy should be in the Guinness Book of World Records.
That's for sure. I still can't get over how he handed the former president the Supreme Court justices he wanted, justices who would support his agenda.
I remember how he wouldn't let President Obama appointed a Supreme Court judge to a newly vacated seat because it was an election year. But Obama wanted to do this in March, 6 months before the election. Still, it was a no.
And what did Mitch do when Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in September, less than 2 months before the 2020 election, when the former president was still in office? He said, okay, yes, it was okay for him to appoint a justice. That was okay. Why was that okay?
I still can't sleep nights when I think about this type of unethical behavior. Is there no shame? What examples do these men of power provide for our children?
I don't know. I can vividly recall how Mitch McConnell talked about the former president after January the 6th. I was cheering. It was as though he finally recognized the devil in front of him. He said the actions of the former president on January the 6th were disgraceful. And he actually said that the former president was practically and morally responsible for what transpired that day. I was actually proud of Mitch for saying that.
I'm sure you changed your mind when Mitch McConnell said he was going to vote for this man, the man who is morally responsible for encouraging violence in our capital, for trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's crazy.
He wasn't the only one who seemed to realize the truth at the time and then pretended to have amnesia.
There used to be a time when certain principles and traditions were respected. That's when your dad was a member. Not too many members of your party are falling in line like mindless. Now too many are falling in line like mindless robots. How do they look at themselves in the mirror?
I can't explain it. We have forgotten who we are and who we are supposed to help. We are supposed to be the shining beacon that sets examples for other countries around the world. And look at what we have become.
We used to be the party that cared about preserving democracies around the world.
Well, of course.
Then how is it possible that the former president and many in your party haven't been as supportive as they should have been when it came to helping Ukraine defeat an invasion from Russia?
That's right. I couldn't believe it took 6 months for the military aid package to reach Ukraine. This delay had a major impact on the Ukrainian military. A shortage of ammunition and a lack of equipment resulted in loss of many soldiers' lives. 6 months? The damage that has been done during that time, how can anybody justify it?
Well, there is the thinking that a better approach is to negotiate some kind of peace.
And why reward Russia and give them what they want? You talk about giving somebody a finger and then they want the hand. And then we all know this is not the way to respond to bullies.
Okay. It's inexcusable. This responds to the desperate request from Ukraine. All right, I can't explain it. This is not the way my party would have responded in the past.
No, they wouldn't, and they shouldn't now.
I couldn't believe it when leaders of your party were calling our party a banana republic because the former president was found guilty by a court of law in New York. I was learned enough to know it's just the opposite. Countries that don't have lawful systems that require a proven person's guilt with hard evidence. These are the banana republics. In Russia, they put people in jail for no good reason, and that's not the only country that operates that way.
We need to stop right now supporting a person who has no morals, no integrity, no empathy, and no legitimate proposals to help elevate all people in our country. He pretends to care, but the truth is he only cares about himself.
Well, Ava, you do know that if you do what you are proposing, it could be dangerous. He doesn't like people who are disloyal.
Yes, it is dangerous politically and otherwise. But as long as my family is with me, I'm ready to detach myself from a party I barely recognize. That's why I wanted to talk to all of you. I want you to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and hopefully I'll have your support.
Mom, you know where I stand?
Ava, I don't think you have a choice. We need to expose the rot and the people who are lying and corrupting our fellow Americans. We need to wake people up to the harmful tactics being used by members of your party, especially the threats and promises of violence.
I agree with every word. When I think of the way the Nazis emerged, the mindless allegiance to a man who used Jews as scapegoats and convinced the country that the only way to solve the problems facing Germany was to eliminate these people and gay people. disabled people, either mentally or physically, gypsies, people with different political beliefs. Well, that was madness, and this is the direction our country seems to be moving in. Now the talk is about eliminating immigrants. Who's next?
I thought in times like this, the Supreme Court would step in and stop this mess. Prevent the former president and your party from going in such a destructive direction.
Sadly, Jane, you can't even trust the word of Supreme Court justices today. They promised to uphold the right of women to have a legal abortion, and then, when they had the chance, they voted down this right that has been a law for over 50 years.
And what about the court's ruling on the president's immunity? They concluded that the president is absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for conduct within his exclusive sphere of constitutional authority. What does that mean? Surely they can't excuse what he did on January 6th when he encouraged the supporters to march on the Capitol just when Congress was certifying the winner of the 2020 election.
Nothing seems to make sense.
Why should the people trust or respect our institutions when the very people who are held in such esteem are liars and hypocrites?
I'm sorry, Krista, the party we used to respect in different times has deteriorated so much it is unrecognizable. There was a time when even if you didn't agree with its policies, you could still respect the people proposing them because they had a legitimate way of thinking and debate and compromise were possible. No more.
And it's now going to take you and your generation to reject what it has become. The people of my generation and your moms are depending on yours to take their citizenship responsibilities very seriously. Reject easy, simple answers and learn to recognize misinformation. They need to do their homework and support people who really embody the best characteristics of democratic leaders.
It's a huge responsibility, but there is no choice.
Here's an idea. Why don't you create a program? Yes, offer a program in your community center that will focus on the basics of government. You know how it works, and then talk about the issues that should be in everybody's minds.
I like that. The truth is, informed citizens are the only people who can force the changes that we need to restore a more ethical, representative government.
Why not do this at the National Constitution Center or Independence Hall?
I'll be glad to participate in whatever you come up with. We can present the issues.
I like that. And then present the positions that the current candidates and their parties are taking on these issues. I think a lot of young voters could really benefit from this.
I agree. And there are older voters too, who have been too busy to really educate themselves about the issues, the accomplishments of the candidates, and their current positions.
The more you can enlighten the public before the next election, the better for all of us.
Thank you for joining us. We now welcome you to stay for our follow-up discussion. Your thoughts are important to us. We would also like you to join our next performance event, during which we will share our performance of Your Vote Counts. This performance will help review the basics of the United States government, the three branches of government, checks and balances, the Electoral College, and the separation of church and state. We will review a few critical issues that are on people's minds and the positions that the two parties and their candidates take on these issues. You will be able to ask questions and share your points of view. It should be a very enlightening time together.
Thank you for those of you who are still with us. So anybody would like to share your thoughts, your reaction to anything that you heard?
Once again, I congratulate your team. You've got a real drama troupe here. I don't know if it changed my mind. You pretty much gave all the arguments that go on in my own head, but and in my own conversations, my own belief system. But I think I really liked it when the comments when Tony would say things like, there were some places where Tony would really agree with the comments. It's like the school shootings are a horrible fact. He agrees like that, and and some of his comments that he's making about personal responsibility or things that were genuine. I've heard people just genuinely say, I think it shows the humanity and sort of the position that and I think there was an earlier part where he was saying, or what you were talking about, like being born into the family. Like how do you even get into one party or the other? People, who, being born into a family where that's just your party, that's your family's party. Or you have social relationships and that's your friends. It's hard to withdraw from something that's your social relationship. So I think I really appreciated acknowledging those aspects of why somebody is in a party after all. I think so many people are just sort of in a party because that's what they were born into, or that's what their friends do. It takes courage and independence and to think differently. And that's true for both parties.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, and anybody else have something? Hi, Maris, glad you could join us.
Hi, sorry,
For
it's so
you, but
late.
glad you were able to make it. Yeah. So anybody else want to? Sabrina, how about you? Did you get anything from this that you didn't know before, or
So
any
again, I also want to congratulate you. It's such a great performance, and I always enjoy learning new things, and it is indeed very enlightening. So I guess, yeah, it's just very, yeah, it's like when you watch this performance, I feel like it's very enlightening. And, as Barbara just pointed out, people maybe they choose one party because of the history reasons, and they really haven't got a chance to think about it. Or I mean, certain things are really striking, such as like, you want this easy answer, and when in certain conditions like the pandemic, everyone is in fear. So when fear is over you, you cannot really think with reasoning. So, maybe the most scary things just get to you and you think that's the truth. I think everybody needs to wake up really and just think what is really true, what is not. Because to unite is much more important than to divide. But to divide is easier than to unite.
How true, how true. Thank you. Thank you. And so glad that you were able to be with us tonight.
Yeah, I so enjoyed it.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Anybody else have something you'd like to share? Anything?
Hi, Alexis. I really enjoyed the performance. Everyone did a great job. With this election and all the things that I've heard, yeah, I think some people are born into a party, but at some point in time, you should be able to, hear what the facts are and, make your own decision. But my concern is that, like even though, people say one thing, when you get behind that curtain, you never know what a person is going to do. We honestly thought that the first election that he won, that Hillary Clinton was so qualified, that, we really thought that she would win. And it was so disappointing when she didn't. And like some of the things that people were talking about were her clothes and, like the way she talked. And those were such minor details that they had nothing to do with, like her ability to lead. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a leader, somebody that can lead the country, that can be persuasive and, get things done for the people. It seems like a lot of times the people turn out to be just one group or one person, actually, and which way are they leading you? So prayerfully, this election will turn out differently. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I usually work the polls and so I'll see how the turnout goes and what people say, but I'm really staying prayerful that like we'll get someone in office who will do who will be for the people, because really it's the people who suffer. When they went into the Ukraine and they started bombing it, they were bombing innocent people. When they go to other countries and they start having wars, it's innocent people and children who are traumatized, basically. It's not the people who are having the problem that are traumatized, because they're somewhere being safe. And so, like I'm just, hoping that this election turns out differently. But I really enjoyed the fact that she discussed it with her family to let them know, look, I'm leaving the party. So that opened up the door for, if someone else was wanting to leave the party, that they could leave the party as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And thank you so much for your participation. You helped make it, really. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
Yeah. So, anybody else? What happened to Harold? We kind of lost him.
Well, I think to go back to what Brenda was just saying about, this is said at a dinner party or with a family. And I think, that she has the guts to say, there's something important I want to tell you. And that the family's still able to, at one point, Tony says, yeah, I feel like the family's punching bag here, but it still shows that it's a family and they can have a discussion. And I think that that's in and of itself is a really key point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the hardest thing is for people to actually challenge somebody, whether it's a family member or a friend. How do you do that in such a way that you can still end up talking with each other afterwards? That's so, I think some of us are getting so upset, so angry that it's hard to do that. But I still think it's kind of necessary. Yeah.
You're usually told not to bring up politics in those circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
It's just, I can't understand how so many laws have been broken and they just let them be broken. So I don't know what the point of the laws are anymore.
Yeah, no, these are very troubling times. Yeah, just today I got a whole section from the New York Times going through all of the different issues and the candidates and it's getting overwhelming. There's so much information, but in the end, it's going to all depend on who's going to come out to vote.
Do you see the cover of the New York Times Magazine?
Yes,
I the emails, all the people that Trump wants to go after, right?
Yeah, he's threatened. And of course, today, this wasn't into this script, but using FEMA and
Oh,
demonizing
right.
FEMA and suggesting that the government is not doing their best to help these people in these troubled areas is it's just so outrageous. And I'm sure a lot of people believing it. It's,
Well, he can say whatever he wants. I mean, right now, also, it was a very good week for Biden. The jobs report was great. The economy's doing much better. So how's he always saying that things are so horrible? I wish the Democrats would play on some of that now and really bring it out, because it's exactly what Trump is saying is so bad. And it was a really good week. I mean, Biden had a public, he publicly was talking about it. He never in that room speaking to the public. So Trump can say whatever he wants. It doesn't matter what the truth is.
Yeah. And they're spending so much money in Pennsylvania. I understand there's 3-to-1 or 4-to-1 commercials that are negative, because the Republicans have so much money. It's a disgrace. And those commercials, I mean, completely full of lies.
It seems that Casey is ahead of McCormick. So are people going to be voting split ticket, those who are voting for Trump?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, even that race is becoming too close. And they are now coming out with commercials against Bob Casey that you just wouldn't believe. And so many, boom, 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 boom. It's all this money that they're, I mean, if I were to become president, the first thing that I would say is campaign finance reform. This business with money, running the elections, the waste that could be used for some really important things. And it's, I mean, do we want the person who has the most money to lead the country? And look what Musk is doing now. Did you hear about yesterday how he came out for Trump and the things that he is saying?
Yeah, but do you see the stars that are backing Trump? It was listed in the paper versus the stars that are backing Harris. I mean, it's such an incredibly different population.
Yeah, no, it's
And the other thing is they take quotes out of context and use them in these commercials, and then they repeat them. Or you don't know if they're AI generated even. So you don't even know what's true now and where that quote came from. It's totally taken out of context. It happens with Harris, it's happened with Casey as well, and the ads against them.
Yeah. No,
I wanted to share a story that happened to me. I was at the Roxborough Y a couple of days ago, and I was just doing, my thing. And they had Fox News on, which has become kind of a default channel. And I saw one of these, they're like 3 big TVs up in the front, and everyone's got their own phone there. I was like probably the only one watching that actually TV. And then one of these attack ads came on. And so when I left, I went to talk to the manager. I said, could I talk to the general manager, the director here?
Good for you.
Yeah, and I went to talk to her and I said, this is such a polarized time. And one of your stations, one of the stations that's on is showing really negative ads. And this is a place that people come to work out. And is it, who puts that channel on? Well, she said it just whoever, the staff comes on and they just put it on in the morning. And she said, but your point is a good one. And I'll just ask the staff to, to have the default channels be the sports. I mean, this is just like a workout place. It could be the sports.
Right.
That can be polarized enough. But I just felt like, that unfortunately Fox News became a default channel in a lot of public places because they have a lot of different kinds of shows on, but they are definitely a biased station. And so I think it just reminded me of the importance of my voice, all of our voices, to say, we don't want to hear that.
Right.
And that doesn't have to be what we hear everywhere.
Thank you for doing that.
I felt because I was so angry, and it helped me feel better, and I think
I boycotted a pizza place that I used to like to go to because of that. I'm going to say something, but I could see that this was not the person who was going to receive what I had to say in any way, shape. So I'm just not going there, period. I just, because I agree, there should be something neutral, whatever it is. Yeah, when other people have to come in. So, yeah, well, thank you for sharing and thank you for doing it. It'll be interesting to see what happens the next time you go there.
Yeah, I mean, as she said, if one of the people at the gym requests, I want to see this channel and I want to see this show, that's fine. She's going to do that. The staff will do that, but not as a default, not as just, they need to be more thoughtful about just what the staff does as a default when they come in the morning and turn on the TVs.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah.